The paint shop was deservedly proud of its reputation as one of the best of its kind in the city, for here it was not simply a matter of selling paints and wallpaper. From morning till night, the three men behind the counter offered a never-ending service of advice to customers, regardless of whether they made a sale or not. They were patient over the perpetual problem of matte, gloss, or eggshell surface, grave and dedicated when consulted about a pattern for the lavatory wall, properly thunderstruck on hearing for the 100th time the tragedy of the kitchen ceiling. It was no wonder the shop was crowded. Nevertheless, there were certain times in the day when they had it to themselves. Then the three of them, Joe Wheeler, Duncan and Jim Peyton, would lean their elbows on the counter and look across to the long black wall of partly demolished houses on the other side of the street. "So are they ever going to pull the rest of it down?" Joe Wheeler would say. "Or are we going to stand here and stare at that until kingdom come?" These back walls, the only remaining part of the buildings, had a special fascination for the three men and had added a special dimension to their day. There they saw ancient patches of striped and flowered wallpaper marked with pale oblongs where the pictures had been, chopped-off shelves lined with worn oilcloth, built-in cupboards whose blue and yellow paint had peeled down to the dead wood. The men in the paint shop knew every scar on the walls opposite, walls so lashed by rain, stripped and scoured by gales, that sometimes it seemed time was running backwards, making these the skeletons and ghosts of all the brand-new houses which week in, week out they heard described by customers. For here in the shop, all talk was of the long-lasting, the indestructible nature of things. Unscratchable surfaces, walls which would endure through lifetimes. It seemed they had to believe that their own house would still stand up even if its inmost fabric was attacked with a hatchet. This afternoon, in the short lull after lunch, the men were behind the counter staring abstractedly across to the other side. This was a city where whole streets of fine old houses had been needlessly torn down, but the half-demolished street had not been one of them. Jim Peyton reminded them of this. "But you'll agree these had to come down," he said. "Would you want the old decayed stuff forever?" "Of course not," said Joe. "No question of it. All I'm asking is, why can't they make a proper job of it when they're at it? Knock the whole thing down at one go. Isn't the city full of these leftovers?" "The human species." Joe shook his head. "Are we a dirty, messy lot, then? I'm beginning to think it. Is there anything worse than the mess human beings can make when they really get down to it? Look at that." They had been looking for months. In front of the wall of houses was a huge area of dust and rubble. Old bricks and blocks of cement, rusty pipes and strips of roofing were scattered around. And into this area had been thrown enough rubbish to fill 1,000 waste bins, peel, newspaper, and sodden carrier bags, tins, rags, strips of carpet and linoleum, milk bottles, whiskey bottles, cartons and old vegetables. The chips of broken glass in every size and colour would have filled a cathedral window. "A stupid, messy species," pronounced Joe darkly again. The young couple who now entered the paint shop, however, did not appear to belong to this species. Joe hastened towards them, for beauty lightens the spirit and quickly puts strength back into the legs. They wished to see wallpapers, and he took them to the shelf where a tome heavy as the Doomsday Book lay open, displaying every sort of covering for walls. The girl turned the thick pages slowly, stopping at stripes and certain patterns of leaves. "Be sure it's the right green," warned the man. "Remember the ceiling." "Greens can be difficult," Joe murmured from behind. "Let me take it to the window shelf. You'll maybe get them in a better light." At the word light, The three of them turned and looked through the windows straight across to the long black wall of broken houses. "The odd things that get left behind," exclaimed Joe. "Do you see, there's still coal and ashes in some of those fireplaces?" "I see that," said the young man, peering across. The man now wandered away to look at colour lists, but the girl still stood at the window, looking across every now and then, as if to match the peeling papers of the walls opposite with those pristine ones in the sample book. Yet Joe, watching her, sensed something else. "We see some odd things across there," he said. "Pigeons in the fireplaces, and I've seen myself, though you'll never believe it, an owl on a cupboard shelf." "But I do believe it," said the girl gravely. Joe studied her face again. "Do you know something?" said the girl. "I've actually heard a good deal about those houses, or at any rate one of them. I couldn't say which. One of my mother's aunts lived over there somewhere. Maybe 50 years ago, maybe more. When she was first married, she took in lodgers, short-term lodgers. Well, there were only two my mother ever heard her talk about. And they were swans. Swans from Russia." "Swans?" "A couple of ballet dancers from the theatre at the back. It was a company on a 2-week visit, a well-known company. Swan Lake. They danced the whole of Swan Lake." "2 swans from Russia?" Joe gave a thin, long drawn-out sound through his teeth, as though whistling them back across the ice-blown steppes. "I don't say they came straight from there," said the girl, "but they had Russian names. Their grandparents had been born there." "Anyway, Russian or not, that explains it," said Joe. "Explains what?" Joe smiled to himself, but did not answer. It explained the sudden changes in her expression, as though she'd seen white birds fly over demolished chimneys, or sooty fireplaces sprinkled with snow as soft as swan feathers. "Did she ever see them again?" "My mother says she kept in touch, sent a card now and then to the one who married and had a baby. So that was the end of dancing for her." "I never heard." Well." Joe gently brooded on the loss. "Still, somebody got a swan for a mother." The shop was filling up again. Turning, he was swept into a discussion on sandpaper. Up at the window, the man had joined the young woman, and they were going slowly again, page by page, through the book of wallpapers. From halfway down the room, Joe watched until they'd come to the end of the book and had closed it up. The girl turned, gave him a smile, and shook her head. So there was nothing they wanted. Nothing amongst the flowers, the leaves, the stripes or squares. In a way he was glad. He had pictured something different for her. A wall which was plain and so smooth you might well see sweeping across as though through an indoor sky the sharp black bird shadows. Almost 2 months later, work started again on the wall of houses. First, a vast hoarding went up around the area, and for a few weeks became a gigantic scribbling board, where the neighbourhood painted and chalked up its politics and religion, its messages of love and hate. Posters were stuck here and there. In no time, the red and yellow slogans became stamped the one upon the other, like shouts vying in shrillness. The houses behind stayed silent and almost hidden. Only the empty windows of their top floors and a few broken chimneys could be seen above the hoarding, and for a while it seemed that these chalked boards spoke for the present, while the houses spoke only of the past. Yet Even the stuff on the boards did not last. The chalk was washed by rain, and the paint chipped off by penknives. Wind tore the posters. The paper mouths of candidates for election, the vendors of quick salvation, were stripped of half their smile in one night's gale. And one day the final demolishers moved in. All morning a great swinging ball of metal battered the wall of the buildings. From behind the hoarding came a slow, steady rumbling of falling bricks, then the thick sigh of heavy dust subsiding. In places, the more stubborn stone took a fierce barrage of beating before it finally let go. But by midday, it was all down. A huge, powdery cloud hung in the air over that part of the city, making the noon light glow a dusky orange, like that of the setting sun. All during the morning, whenever they had a moment, the men in the paint shop had looked across. One moment they had still seen the skeletal lines of upper windows. When they looked again, even these ghosts had vanished. There was only the dust cloud, slowly rising. Joe had been called away to advise on paint. It was the same old question. "Oh, yes, long-lasting, of course," he reassured. "But not everlasting. I can't promise that, I'm sorry to say. Not for walls or anything else. I've had a bit of wear and tear in my time, and it's starting to show. Bit of the shine gets rubbed away. Your brilliant gloss starts to go. Chips flaking off here and there. It's all the same. Paint, skin, teeth, hair, well, it's got to come sometime, hasn't it?" "They get me worried," said Joe as he returned to the counter. "Those ones that want a signed and dated guarantee of immortality for themselves and their houses. We're not gods." The others agreed they were not gods, and folded their elbows more comfortably along the counter. "In the end of the day, what's left of your house anyway?" said Joe. "Black walls and a heap of rubble. One or two memories might go on, though, might pass down through the years. Happenings in the house, things that came and went." "Naturally," said Duncan, shifting his elbows again. "Things?" said Jim Peyton. "Like what?" "All kinds of things," said Joe. "Coming and going." "Swans. Could be swans." The others, on either side of him, turned their heads to stare. Jim gave a guffaw. "Well, we've had a mixture coming and going in our house over the years. Dogs, cats, canaries, even a hamster, God help it, when the kids were small. But swans? Where do swans come in?" Though Joe was dealing with questions all day long and every day, there were always some, nearer the bone or heart, he was slower or even downright unwilling to answer. Smiling, stubbornly silent, he wandered off again to stare out at the cloud of dust which was now spreading to merge with the smoke from factory chimneys, and with the colder fog from the great sea river further out